Morning, folks. How are you today? It's beautiful sunshine here. Just don't look out the window. So we've spoken about your whole life and this whole life grid and how to separate that and not just rely on one single thing throughout your life, because if you lose that, then you've got a big void. So how do we do that then? How do we put that together? So you recognise the concept of the grid and its importance in reducing many of your fears regarding relationships, job, children, and so on. So you're ready to take the next steps, really, to incorporate this powerful tool into your daily life. So here's some of the steps. So step number 1 is simply recognise that you might be caught in a vicious circle. If you look carefully at your past, you'll probably notice that every time negative feelings associated with loss come up, you took that very same pathway to try and relieve the discomfort. You tried to recreate that which had you lost in the first place. I mean, for example, look at it like this. What's the first thing many of us do when we're devastated by the loss of a loved one or a partner? We simply substitute heads. And when the next love of our life leaves, we experience the same feeling of devastation, which is amazing, since we've only known this person for almost 3 weeks. Then what do? Well, it's not hard to guess. We go out and find another one, and only, with whom we can't simply live without. If this or a similar pattern sounds familiar, it's important not to make the big thing out of it. Just recognise that up until now, you simply do not have the appropriate framework in which to create the healthier way to act. The mere fact of acknowledgement of the possibility of another way is enough to get you really to the next step. So what is that next step? Morning, Sarah. Morning, Anne-Marie. Morning, Andrea. So create your whole life grid. I mean, the whole life grid I'm talking about is this one. So the personal whole life grid. Take some time to think about what components you'd like to include in your life and begin filling in the boxes. I mean, I'm a great believer in setting the stage. Whenever I begin any kind of embarkment. So I recommend that you play some calming music in the background while you're filling in the boxes, and make sure you're alone and that your phone is turned off. I think that's the most important thing. You've got to immerse yourself in this process in order for it to work. So the third thing, after you've filled in your grid, pick one of the boxes to work on. Shut your eyes and visualize what you'd like to be a part of your life and what it would look like. What would you be doing? How would you be interacting with people around about you? How would you feel? That's important. In order to get that overall immersion, you have to actually feel that process. You have to feel it happening. You have to feel it going through the process. And that's what drives you forward. Remember the two key ingredients. The two key ingredients here are 100% commitment and acting as if you count. So let's call them the magic duo, and I'll talk about this. So 100% commitment and acting as if it counts. For that's exactly what you create in your life, that kind of magic. And probably here's a classic example of that grid itself filled out. So you've got it there. Contribution, hobby, leisure, family, alone time, personal growth, work, relationship, and friends. And that will give you an idea of what to start off with in your journey. So as we come to the fourth thing, when you get a clear picture, take a blank piece of paper and begin writing down what your mind created for you in that process, paying attention to all the details, and this will help you with the next step. So the next step is list as many things that you'd have to be done in order to make your visualization become a reality. So if you want to have more friends, then you have to think about all the things you have to go through to do that. Friend them on Facebook, start making nice comments on their posts, start with a dialogue with them. Find out if they have any interest that you have in yourself. And then you have a mutual interest yourself, and then that's when you have something to talk about. And that's how you would build relationships and friends with other people. You always did that when you were younger, when you think about it. When you were younger, you always looked to associate with something someone else was doing before you actually did it. When I went to college for the first time, I was completely terrified. But I actually found somebody that actually thought like me and was like me to a degree. And then there and behold, Scott and I spent the rest of our college together in our whole thing, and our whole studying process as well. And even when we had separate classes, because he did separate from me, we still met up for a coffee and a chat. So list as many things that you'd have done in order to make your visualization become reality. Again, to take time to think through this carefully. And I cannot repeat too frequently, action is the key to your success. Action is the key to the success of this. You have to do something to make your real life match your visualization. As I said, I've gone through this. So your actions are critical. Let's see how this actually might work out. If you're picked the area of personal growth, you might see yourself taking classes and a workshop, reading books and attending lectures. In your visualization, the magic duo that we spoke about, 100% commitment and full visualization, assures you that you approach all of this with a will that keeps you focused and also assures your active participation at all times. If you're in a workshop, you might see yourself interacting with other students, doing all the homework, whether it's a credit course or not, happily anticipating the next class, and really happy that you have chosen to be there overall. By the way, when you take this concept into the real world, old habits will actually emerge and come back as a result of this. I mean, that's a given because you're so used to it. Remember, as I said before, for me, I've been at this for 53 years. It's not going to resolve in 53 days, 53 weeks. It's going to take a bit of time, but you have to start somewhere, and action is the key to any success. Thus, when you're actually at the workshop, you might suddenly become overcome by the wish that you were there with another person. In the beginning, your mind will definitely, without question, want to pull you out of your actual commitment itself. And it will eventually take you to the constant vigilance to control your wandering. Eventually, you will be able to say, oh, to heck with that person. I'm here to learn. Imagine what this does for your self-esteem when you actually focus on and get the goal that you're after. Eventually, you'll be able to make your mind focus on the matter at hand and take in what actually happens around about you. And then guess what happens? The neediness begins to disappear. The problems that needy people is that they can't take anything around them. Then they wonder why they're starving emotionally. And I'll say that again. The problem with needy people is that they can't take anything around them. And then they wonder why they're starving emotionally. So what about the area of friends? What would it look like? Here you might see yourself inviting them over to dinner, creating a terrific evening out of it, writing them letters of appreciation, or simply calling them and telling them you were thinking about them. In the real world, when you're with your friends, you'll probably wish you were there and be the only one and only. This is the time you want to call in the magic duo. By being focused on your commitment to a wonderful friend, acting as if you truly make a difference in their lives. From the mental place, you'll begin to find a match and much pleasure and fulfillment in that process. So let's take a look at the area of leisure then. This one stumps a lot of the people I speak to, and I admit it's an area I really need to work on daily as well. Many of us tend to be overachievement orientated and get anxious when we take time to relax and enjoy ourselves. It seems to be okay when you're relaxing with your friends or partner, but when you're on your own, you feel you should be accomplishing something. I get that all the time. That's how I sometimes have to go a walk out on the beach. Again, the way you release your anxiety is to call upon your magic duo by committing yourself 100% to relaxation and acting as if Your well-being counts. You can enjoy taking some time alone for yourself. So the key here, though, is each time to do the steps 3, 4, and 5 we previously spoke about for the grid. And you'll be amazed at what a beautiful life begins to emerge. So full, so rich, so loving, so giving in the process. It's important to keep in mind, though, that whatever you create in your grid can become your reality if you're committed to taking the necessary action. So finally, each day, create for yourself specific goals that reflect all the boxes in your grid. If you're already a diligent daily goal setter, you'll probably notice that your goals are focused in the one and only area of your life. Most likely that's going to be work. By setting goals for all the areas of your grid, your life will become balanced. And I'll put that grid up again. And here's a classic example of that. So as you approach each goal, bear in mind that the Magic Duo 100% commitment and I count to help you focus on achieving a sense of fulfillment. I mean, you may not be able to cover every area of the grid every day. Naturally, there'll be times in your life where one area takes precedent. For example, when you go on holiday, you can forget about all the areas of the grid. Just concentrate on having a good time. The Magic Duo will ensure that you take it all in. In this same manner, an important work project may require your undivided attention. What are you ultimately looking for? What you're ultimately looking for is balance at the end of the day. Consider this. If you do not feel like taking the time or making the effort to do these steps, you will greatly be shortchanging yourself. Isn't your life worth it? You only go around once after all. What I'm asking you to do is set up the basic structure of your life so that you can then go on living in the way that supports your growth and satisfaction. If you find it difficult to motivate yourself, don't put yourself down. Find a self-help group to act as a catalyst. If you can't find support groups, find what I call a growth buddy, somebody you speak to on regular occasions. You and your buddy can help each other by meeting weekly and working on a grid. Mastermind groups. And your goals and your action in whatever you want to do. Committing yourself to do certain homework before each meeting often spurs you on to taking action. The key is to take the commitment of your buddy seriously and act responsibly during the week by getting everything done that you committed yourself to do. If you can't find a self-help group and don't want to work with a growth buddy, find a group that is conducted by a professional. It's amazing how quickly results can materialize when you know that what you want and you're determined to get it. Most people never take the time to focus on what they want, but they wonder why they always feel empty in their life. Keep asking yourself, how whole is my life? Continue to create such richness for yourself that nothing can ever take away your basic sense of completeness. Can you imagine how little you would have to fear then overall? And I'll see